Somewhere out in the Indian Ocean, a massive container ship is steaming north. For 25 years, a vessel exactly like this has operated as the invisible engine of the global economy, crossing the Pacific hundreds of times to deliver smartphones, grain, and cars across the world. But today, this ship is no longer a valuable asset. The engine is inefficient by modern standards. The steel hull is suffering from severe metal fatigue, and crucially, its insurance certification is about to expire. To safely dismantle a vessel of this size, which is essentially a floating city packed with heavy metals and sludge oil, you need a dry dock. The ship is floated into a concrete chamber, the water is pumped out, and it's taken apart in a sealed environment. But renting a facility like this costs thousands of dollars an hour. For a major shipping line, paying to destroy an old ship using European or American dry docks costs vastly more than the scrap metal is worth. It is an act of economic suicide they will avoid at almost any cost. So the captain is given a new set of coordinates. He waits for a monthly king tide, the highest water level of the month. He aligns the vessel perpendicular to the shore, revs the engines to full speed ahead, and intentionally rams 20,000 tons of steel into the beach. This is Alang. It's a 15-kilometer stretch of mud and sand on the west coast of India, and it currently handles nearly 40% of the world's end-of-life maritime tonnage. Within weeks, the vessel will cease to be a ship. This low-tech, violent collision is the only way for the industry to transform 20,000 tons of toxic liability back into raw materials, like scrap steel, copper wiring, and second-hand furniture. The Gulf of Combat possesses a unique geographic advantage. Here, the difference between high and low tide is up to 12 meters, a massive wall of water carrying ships right to the shoreline. When the tide goes out, the water retreats for kilometers. This extreme swing acts as a natural, free dry dock. The ship is left resting completely flat on solid ground, allowing crews to walk right up to the hull and slice it into blocks with handheld torches. Once the steel is cut, there is a massive local market ready to buy it. India has a 1.4 billion person infrastructure demand. Instead of mining iron ore from the earth, shipbreaking provides high-grade, pre-smelted scrap steel that is immediately ready to be re-rolled. Alang is a geographic hack. The massive tides and cheap labor perform the exact same task as a billion-dollar European facility, at a fraction of the cost. Under the European Union's waste shipment regulations, it is illegal to export hazardous waste from a developed OECD country to a non-OECD nation. Because these ships are filled with asbestos and sludge oil, selling them directly to an Indian yard would be a crime. To bypass this, reputable shipping lines rely on a specialized middleman known as a cash buyer. These entities function as the specialized fences of the maritime world. The transaction happens quietly in international waters. The reputable flag of Germany or Greece is lowered. In its place, a flag from an unregulated jurisdiction like Comoros is raised for this final voyage. The legal link connecting the ship to its original European owner is instantly severed. The cash buyer then flips the stateless vessel to a plot owner on the mudflats of Alang, securing a multi-million-dollar profit for their trouble. This maritime money laundering is the only mechanism shielding global brands from the toxic reality of their supply chains. For decades, environmental NGOs have pushed lawmakers to ban the beaching method entirely. Cutting ships open on tidal mudflats means heavy metals and microplastics wash directly into the Indian Ocean with every single tide. But the global capacity for recycling ships is finite. The world needs to scrap 8 to 10 million tons of shipping every year. Highly regulated green yards in Europe and Turkey only have a combined capacity of about 1 million tons. If lawmakers successfully banned beaching tomorrow, roughly 90% of the world's retiring fleet would suddenly have nowhere to go. We saw a preview of this during the pandemic when the cruise industry collapsed. Massive ships were sent to Alang in such high volumes, they backed up into the ocean, waiting for a slot on the mud. Shutting down Alang would ironically trigger a worse, uncontrollable environmental disaster. Thousands of vessels would become zombie ships, abandoned in harbors, where they would leak oil and rust at anchor, because recycling them would cost more than they are worth. This is why Alang is slowly bifurcating. Under the Hong Kong Convention, some yards are upgrading, pouring concrete to catch toxic spills, and using large cranes to lift blocks rather than letting them crash into the sand. Critics label this greenwashing. They argue as long as the stern remains submerged, during the cutting process, it is physically impossible to truly contain the toxic runoff. But the alternatives have vanished. The safer yards in Turkey are full, and China has banned the import of scrap ships entirely. The global shipping industry is left with a grim ultimatum: demand perfect green recycling facilities that do not exist, or accept the better beaching of the upgraded yards in India. The next time you buy a pair of sneakers or a car, there is a statistical certainty that it spent weeks on a ship that will end its life on this beach. Alang is a deliberate creation of the global economy. We demand cheap shipping, and cheap shipping requires a cheap place to die.